This is the history of MEBC from November 2015 to the present day and beyond. So the next slide, please. And we're talking about prehistoric, as it were. And there were three groups before MEBC came into existence. And if you show the next slide, please, David, we've got images that represent those three groups. There was Aryachita looking very young and handsome there. Aryachita, maybe about 20 years ago, I'm not entirely sure, moved to Southend to care for his mum and decided on his own to run meditation classes, sessions, introduction to Buddhism courses, Mitra study, etc. He did that right up until 2018, when we were well on the way, and his health was suffering a little bit. So, but actually Aryachita did a huge amount in Mid-Essex, and some of the people that come to us today have come through Aryachita's group. So that was the first group. The second was in 2011, the Mainland Center. I think maybe it's called the Denji Center. And it was started by Aryasara, who was Gary there then, and supported by Mike and Marian, Suze and Mark. And there were quite a lot of people there attending. And they met every Monday to study, every Thursday for a Dharma night, Saturday mornings to meditate, and occasionally they'd have day retreats and so on. And they started, meeting in different venues, and then actually rented a property in 2013, which was lovely. I did visit it, and it was a lovely space for them. And then the third group was a women's group in Hockley that Upekshidi led. And it met in Upekshidi's conservatory. There's Upekshidi's conservatory with this extraordinary garden beyond it. And she used to support Aryachita, and then started bringing some of the women into her home to actually do meditation together, meditation and study together. So by November 2015, these three groups decided to come together to form the Mid-Essex Buddhist Center. So next slide, please. So from November 2015 to January 2017, we were renting by the hour, and we could only afford to rent one evening a week, which was Dharma night on Wednesdays. And we continued with Mitra studies on Saturdays in Upekshidi's conservatory. If we could actually have the next slide, please, David. We had a launch in January 2017. And it was at Champions Manor Hall, the official launch. And we had speakers. You can see there Lokumdra. And Lokumdra sadly has passed away since then. But he was a great support to us at the beginning. And he was also a great support to the Mainland group. And a lot of people came to support us. So we had this official launch. And if you move on, please, David, we were meeting in Champions Manor Hall beautiful place. It was actually, we were very lucky because it was a very, very beautiful place. We could only afford to rent a conference room, and you can see the conference room on the left. And we used to meet from 7:30 to 9:30, and we could only afford to pay for 3 hours, to rent it for 3 hours. So it actually meant we had half an hour to set up and half an hour at the end to put everything away. Those tables you can see there were incredibly heavy. And we used to arrive, the whole Sangha, this was extraordinary, talk about Virya. Everybody rolled their sleeves up, and everybody in the Sangha that were part of the Sangha then made things happen. We used to fold those tables up, move them away, move the chairs. And if you could have the next slide, please. The slide on the right, you can see behind Tracy and Marion, one of the 2 trolleys. And those trolleys were kept in the basement. So in that half hour, not only did we have to fold all those tables and move all those chairs, but we'd bring up from the basement all our mats and cushions and shrine equipment, tea, coffee. And in half an hour, there we were meditating on the left. You can see how we set up the shrine on the left, and tea was served. And we continued in Champions Manor Hall, and it was a very beautiful space. I was quite sad when we moved away from Champions Manor Hall. If we could have the next slide, please, David. And as a result of actually having a permanent place, well, renting by the hour, as it were, we grew. Actually, our Sangha grew, and that was our first Sangha retreat at Vajrasana. And we had a lot of people there, a lot of people who are with us this evening. And obviously the Sangha and our activities were growing. So if we could have the next slide, please. We were doing so well that we decided that we wanted to have our own center. So we started looking around, and we looked throughout 2016 and couldn't quite find the right place at the right price. But if you put the next slide up, please, David, the sweet shop, we found candy sticks. It was a little sweet shop, 17 Trinity Square. And we thought, there was a downstairs and an upstairs. So if you show the next slide, please. There's 2 pictures here. The woman that ran the sweet shop, actually, it was crammed. Every little corner was crammed with sweets and toys and heaven knows what else. But we used our imagination, and we thought, this might work, as it were. It had a lovely energy, and the energy of children, maybe after school with their pennies coming in and buying their gobstoppers or whatever it was they were buying. There was a really lovely energy in the building. So that was the downstairs. The next slide, please. You can see what the upstairs looked like in the first 2 slides. It was a dumping ground for the sweet shop. It was an absolute mess. But we thought, using our imagination, we thought maybe that could work. Maybe it might make a good shrine room. So eventually we got the keys, and we got the keys on the 24th in the afternoon. So Sam was buying sweets at school there. Wow, Sam. Okay, so the 24th of December 2016 in the afternoon we got the keys. Everybody spent Christmas Day at home with their families. On the 26th of December, I turned up at about midday, and the last picture you can see there, the Sangha really got together. And by the time I got there, they'd knocked down a wall because there was a separating wall there. They were taking off that horrible wooden sort of paneling. They'd ripped up the carpet. I was just thinking, goodness me, in just one morning, so much had been done. But it was this kind of ardor, being on fire, passion. The thought that we might have our own Buddhist center was just extraordinary. And not only did our own Sangha, do so much. There was so much virya, but this is where the wider Triratna Sangha, I just have an incredible amount of gratitude. So, for example, the London Buddhist Center, they had the mats and cushions from their retreat center, Vajrasana, and they just gave them to us. So all our mats and cushions, which we've been using up until the present day, came from the London. So that was incredibly generous. And then we needed a rupa, a Buddhist statue, and we couldn't afford it. So somebody said, Cambridge, and Ratnagosha was actually, is our president. And somebody said to me that because Windhorse had shut down, that Cambridge Buddhist Center in the bay, you know, underneath the stage in the theatre, they had some rupas. So I wrote to Ratnagosha and said, would it be possible to actually let us have one of those? You know, how much would you charge for them, etc. And within hours, Ratnagosha had sent me an email, 2 images. He said, you can have one of these 2. It's our gift to you. Come and get it on Monday. So if we could have the next slide, please. I went on Monday and picked up the rupa. Beautiful, beautiful image. Went in my car, and luckily there were people there, because it's really, really heavy, people there to help them put it in my car. So I put a blanket around it so the seatbelt wouldn't damage it. And 2 very funny things happened as a result. The windows of my car are smoked glass. So every time driving from Cambridge to Chelmsford, every time I stopped at a traffic light, I could see people next to me having a look and thinking, who is that guy at the back of the car? It was really weird, you know, holding his hand up, you know. So that was funny. And then I showed this picture to my 5-year-old granddaughter, and she said to me, was he cold, Nanny? So that was quite funny. But we have benefited so much from the generosity of our Sangha and the wider Triratna Sangha. It's been extraordinary. So the next slide, please. MEBC is ready. So the shrine room got transformed very quickly. All the work was done. You can see the cushions and the mats there from the London Buddhist Center. You can see the rupa, the Buddhist figure from the Cambridge Buddhist Center, and the work that our Sangha had done. And we have a beautiful shrine room, absolutely beautiful shrine room now. And thanks to David, actually, the front, if you remember the picture of candy sticks, David is our communications marketing sort of person, and he transformed the front to what it looks like now. It's beautiful, beautiful front. Yeah, and not only the shrine room became beautiful, the front became beautiful, but the downstairs is extraordinary. It's a bit like a TARDIS. I never knew how much we could fit into that space. So we have a kind of a bookshop, a library. We sell Buddhist artifacts. We've got a huge accessible toilet that is, you know, you could have a meeting in there. Actually, it's so large. We have a beautiful kitchen around the corner, another toilet around the other corner. And if you look back, this is the seating area. And we have photographs taken by Mike and Marion's son, beautiful photographs. And if you move to the next slide, please, David, we also had room for a therapy room. So this space we could rent out, beautifully transformed and done. So we had CBT therapists practicing from there. We had masseurs practicing from there. So that was another sort of source of income. So so what we did is we had another launch. So if you could show the next launch, please, David. So this time it was at the Leisure Centre, which is just around the corner from us. And we had a lot of local people as well as friends coming to the launch. And as a result of that, if you could have the next slide, please, David. Our activities and numbers grew substantially. So we were holding art classes, meditation workshops, Monday morning meditations early in the morning, the Wednesday Dharma night and the Thursday morning drop-in. Well, the Wednesday Dharma night continued, and Upechadi started the Thursday morning drop-in, which have both been very, very successful. We started opening the center 3 times a week so that the public could come in. Laura started a Sunday school for children. Aryasara did meditation for beginners, teaching meditation on a Monday morning for people who didn't know how to meditate. And Aryasara also started Introduction to Buddhism and Meditation courses. And all of that has gone really, really well. And on top of that, if you could move to the next slide, let me just see how we're doing for time. Yep, I think I'm probably going a little bit over time. We had 4 Mitra study groups, and the Mitra study groups have done so well. As Karen says there, she was interested in learning, after being with us for a little while, she was interested in learning a bit more about Buddhism, joined the Mitra study course, and what she didn't expect, she did learn a lot more about Buddhism, but the very close friendships with other people that have formed through Mitra studies. And she says at the end, I love the fact that we're all learning together whilst also supporting each other. A truly life-affirming experience. We've been very lucky with our Mitra study classes, and people have been very, very committed to the Mitra study. And a lot of our success has come from Mitra studies, because the Mitra study and the friendships mean, as Parami said, you know, it's those friendships that actually help move us forward. So Mitra study, next slide, we had Mitra ceremonies. You can see there, David and Kay's Mitra ceremony. Next slide, we held retreats, Mitra retreat at Ringsfield Hall, very, very lovely retreats in this beautiful mansion. And not only Mitra studies and friends becoming Mitras, and actually in the 5 years that we have been open, 54 friends have become Mitras, and 17 of those have asked for ordination, which is quite a lot really. And if you move to the next slide, not only Mitras, but our first homegrown order member. I can't tell you how excited we all were when Gary became Aryasara. It was an event for him. It was an incredible event for us as well. And apart from that, so if you keep showing the slides, we were participating in local events, mind, body and soul, lots of different events. So we exhibited there and answered people's questions. Swati from the London Buddhist Center would come and actually lead mindfulness courses. We now have our own mindfulness teacher in Pat, but at those days we didn't have one. If you continue, we celebrated the Mid-Essex Buddhist Center 3rd birthday at Ringsfield Hall in one of these Mitra retreats. Next slide, please. And we've had such extraordinary support from visiting speakers like Parami, but we've had so many speakers come and support us. Of particular note are the Padmaloka team. They come every single session and really, really support us. And Vidya Darka from Padmaloka is with us this evening, supporting us again. Very, very good support. We have such fantastic KMs. If you carry on, please, David. We did lots of fundraising events. This is one of the auctions that we did. We participated in festival days at South Woodham Festival. My son actually played at this festival, so I was really pleased, not only because of the Mid-Essex presence, Mid-Essex Buddhist Centre presence, but because my son was playing at this gig, his gig there. And then we had other events, fundraisers outside the centre. Buddhist Action Month. We've celebrated Buddhist Action Month every single year, and people come up with fantastic ways of actually putting into action our altruism. Okay, so next slide. COVID and Zoom. I was incredibly impressed, actually, because I think lockdown commenced on the 16th of March 2020. A week later, we were up and running on Zoom. A lot of that is due to David. David worked incredibly hard. He's very technically capable. A week later, we were continuing with all our activities on Zoom. Next slide, please, David. So that's a common image now. You know, everybody knows about that. That and You're Muted have become common sort of ways of communicating. And it's interesting, actually, because I never thought that being on Zoom could be so successful. Our biggest success has been the daily morning meditation. We lead meditation every morning at 7 o'clock. We have a huge number of people coming to our daily morning meditation. And Ben, who's here this evening, is the latest person that joined us this morning for meditation. So all the time we're getting new people. So I think that some of the activities on Zoom will continue after everything's back to normal, whatever that means. But you can see from this one that the Sangha really, because everybody wanted to help, particularly people that are isolated on their own, the Sangha came up with all sorts of activities. Pilates with Vicky, relaxation and stress release with Marion, self-massage routine, yoga and relaxation, all sorts of things, puja. Our activities have really, really grown as a result of the Zoom. So Kay, for example, is here this evening from North America. And often we have Shobit from India, for example, and my sisters from Venezuela. So it's closed some doors, of course. The doors of Mid-Essex Buddhist Center have been closed for a while, for a good year, but Zoom has opened different doors. So the other thing that we did is when in the summer, when we could, we had an unforgettable camping retreat, and it was lovely. So a lot of people had only met on Zoom. I'm thinking about Diane, for example, and it was lovely to actually see people in person, that people have got legs, not just heads. Anyway, and not only that, but the next slide, we continued with Vandana Chitta with her ordination, Parami doing her public ordination. That was lovely in September. And last week, we held 3 more Mitra ceremonies. So 3 more, Dave, Terry and Abby became Mitras last week. So we've been able, it's amazing. It's not the same as being at the center, but it's amazing actually how it works on Zoom. And possibly it's because we are a very close-knit Sangha. So the future, if we have the next slide, please. So for the foreseeable future, we will continue on Zoom. Next slide, please. We handed in our notice on the 17th of February. So it was a very difficult decision to make. But actually, this centre has become far too small for us. So we've been paying rent for a year. And thanks to the generosity of the Sangha and the standing orders that have been set and so on. But we felt, that we weren't opening the centre, we're not using the centre. And actually, the centre was too small. In the tea breaks, we were shoulder to shoulder with people. And I can't imagine that for the next 2 years, anybody's going to want to be in an enclosed place, shoulder to shoulder with anybody. So we made the very difficult decision to hand in our notice on the 17th of February, and it's a 6 months notice. In August, we will not have this Buddhist center anymore. And luckily, due to a very generous donation by a member of our Sangha, we've now got money to put down as a deposit. So we're looking for permanent to buy and permanent premises. One possibility, we've made an offer for Kingsway Surgery, and we've made an offer of 400,000. We tried to bring it down even further, but they wouldn't accept less than that. So we are looking towards buying our own property. And Ian went to visit the Kingsway Surgery, and he's done a rough plan of what the new Buddhist center could look like. So on the left, you've got the downstairs. So we've got much more space, as you can see downstairs, so that in days of, pandemic, COVID and all of that, there'll be plenty of space downstairs. The main shrine room has the possibility of being extended, and we have the idea of actually extended the main shrine room to make a very, very large shrine room downstairs. And upstairs, we have a second shrine room. We'll continue renting out massage therapy rooms, etc. An office, which we haven't had and missed, and a library and a discussion room with a disabled toilet and so on. So that is what we're moving towards. We were very lucky because we got a very substantial loan, a very favorable terms from Windhorse, but we are trying to raise £100,000 by the beginning of July, by the 1st of July. The other thing that I wanted to add, and I'm sorry that I didn't add it, that the Hornchurch Buddhist Center, the group, not Buddhist Center, the Hornchurch group, Triratna group, closed. And we've been very fortunate to actually receive some of the Sangha from the Hornchurch group, who have been phenomenal in supporting us and being part of our Sangha. In any case, we're trying to raise money, 100,000 by the 1st of July. This is an example of a funding pyramid by another Triratna Center. You can see from there that however little you give or however much you give, it makes a huge, huge difference. So we are actually asking, we've got a Just Giving page. If you'd like to move on to the next page, we've got a Just Giving website, a page, as it were. And you can find that on our website. I think that David is going to put the link in the chat below. And I looked just before we started, and we started this Just Giving page about 2 weeks ago, and we're nearly at 19,000, just short of £19,000. And that is from our Sangha and from the wider Triratna Sangha. The wider Triratna Sangha is being incredibly generous. Very, very, very grateful. So that is the end of my presentation. And I want to thank you for bearing with me. I found it incredibly moving, actually, just looking back. In 5 years, we've done so much. Can you imagine where we'll be in 5 years' time? The trustees of MEBC are very keen to secure our own premises to ensure that the Dharma remains available for the future within Mid-Essex. And there is a real thirst for the Dharma in Mid-Essex. And I repeat Parami's words, all we do is not just for our benefit, it is for the benefit of others, is to alleviate the suffering of others. And whatever little we can do makes a huge difference to people's lives.